Hi guys, how are we doing? Happy New Year. Going into an early sequence. Actually, I can take those out because I don't think I'm going to need them for this particular conversation. Happy to be here and back with you for the new year. I hope you're well. I wanted to talk a little bit about your content journey in 2026 and where you're going to take content. And I'm starting this live series going forwards from this week on Fridays at 11. So we'll start small, start easy, but we're going to grow from here, and we're going to line up some really amazing interviews for you over the next period of time. So just having a think about where things have gone with YouTube and what's going on with YouTube and everywhere else, and with what's happening around the space in social media, short form clips and stuff, and what's happening with the whole EV revolution. It's a really interesting journey. I started this process in 2005. I am a producer by trade, and I started by looking at what was going on with video blogging at the time. I'd heard about this idea of video podcasting or video blogging and how video was being affected by people who were publishing on the web. It was like the first vlogs and stuff like that early in 2005. And I spoke to a really brilliant blogger at the time who suggested that I looked at video blogging on a platform. I think it was called Typeform, and it was a blogging platform where you would shoot, upload clips, do a little bit of a text around it, and then go from there. She said the only way to learn is to start doing it. So I started, simple as that. And it was the process of understanding that you could shoot clips on a camera like this. This is my trusty DC PCR1, I think it was called, camcorder. I'd shoot one clip on that. I made a rule for myself that I'd make one clip a week. I'd upload it to Tinternet at the time, which was this blogging platform. And then it would be like a 30-second clip, and I'd minimize the editing because I hate editing. I've discovered that. I'm not good at editing, but I'm too kind of impatient for it as a producer. But I love the idea that you could just turn up with one of these, shoot your own sequences. You had no brands, no clients, because I come from a world of commercials and brand and lots of client layers and delivery and so on. And you could make this work by uploading your clip to the internet, and you were instantly published to a huge audience. And the audience, even in 2005, would find you quite quickly. It was directed towards early EV platforms. So those platforms are wonderful opportunities, even back then, to start producing video. And video, we were all hearing it was going to explode. We'd been making commercials on 35mm film for years and running TV. TV ads were still making the 30-second TV spot was the most important thing then. The internet became such an opportunity for trying to just speak to a new audience. And these clips started to grow. So the audience started to find me. And as it grew, I got approached by some of the big blogging platforms like Tree Hugger and other really amazing American kind of green platforms that spoke about me and my content journey. So I should probably be intercutting this with some of the early stuff so you can look at it, but it's difficult on a live. I need to learn how to use this live studio a bit better, and I will do that over the course of this year, hopefully. But they started to pick up and understand what I was doing. I decided that I was looking for an electric car at the time. I was working in Soho, and I'd been cycling into the West End of London for years. But I'd seen that the early Think EV was around in 2005, and other interesting vehicles were around. And I thought to myself, I'd really like to get one of these electric cars. I'm looking at clean air for the city. There was no congestion charge then. Lots of people were driving massive 5-litre vehicles into the West End and parking every day at the time. And I saw that there was this thing, the G-Wiz, coming out, which was this tiny Indian car built by Riva. It was a lead acid battery. It had a AC motor, I think, or DC motor at the time. And it had 30 miles of range, and you would literally plug it into a 13-amp socket, charge it up, and drive around the city. So my idea was I'll buy the car and I will document owning this electric car and just make a weekly kind of update for an audience about the ownership and the charging difficulties and the challenge of owning this vehicle. And the vehicle was absolutely brilliant. I'm not a small guy. I was able to get in and do my weekly vlogs like the guy out of The Incredibles with my camera hunched up in there doing, hey, how you doing? You know, this is me doing this. And some of the early clips are on this YouTube channel, so you can see, you know, what we were talking about at the time. But those early clips were weekly uploads and were picked up. And then as it went on, I was doing weekly uploads for a number of years, and that was really good. But we were, no one ever really cracked the internet at the time. There were companies that were understanding how viral marketing worked, that were very successful, how to build audience around the work that you wanted to, you know, that was kind of getting massive attentions. And friends of mine were setting up things like viral charts and interesting stuff. And I was having this dialogue with an audience. It made no money at all, but it was really interesting because people were responding. And then I get like really strange requests. Like I got a lovely guy called Your Get in Touch, who was in California, and he drove a Tango. And I got the opportunity to go out and meet him in LA. He worked at Google and he owned this Tango, which was an EV supercar at the time. It did about 140 miles an hour. It was 47 or 57 inches wide, super small car. And I really enjoyed using that and meeting him. And I made a film around it, which you can see on this channel. And I also got to drive the Tesla Roadster. I went up and saw the Roadster at Hethel, then being built at the Lotus plant in Norwich. And I saw the first release of Roadster to the public in Norwich, weirdly, and in a kind of hall. And I spoke to the motor designer and all that. These interviews are all on my channel, so you can see them. And it was enormous. It was enormous fun. And I got bitten, and I've never really given it up. I was there. I was one of the first 5 vloggers in the UK. There were only 5 people doing video blogging at the time. Robert Llewellyn hadn't even started, but he was popping into the scene because he was doing stuff in a price. I can't remember the name of his channel that he was doing. And there were a few early kind of adopters that were trying stuff in EV, but this is pre-YouTube. Around 2006, I think I started a YouTube channel. What I was finding is that a lot of companies were coming and going, and there were companies that were offering. There was a company called Blip TV, which was brilliant. You could upload your clip there once, and it would distribute it across platforms, because the platform started growing really, really quickly in the early days of video, and you could distribute it across all of those. Suddenly, Blip got bought, and they just deleted all the content, and it went to a company called Maker Studio, I think, at the time. And you were at risk of losing all of your hard work and your content, which I realized. So I was a bit loath to do too much on YouTube in case it didn't work. At the time, people were saying that electric cars will be a thing in 2020. They will. You've got 15 years before they're going to be really big, but they're going to grow by then. And by 2020, we will all be driving electric cars. So I've watched that journey ever since. The early videos on YouTube were really fun because I was just shooting these clips. I was getting invites from Renault to go to Paris. I was getting invites. I got GM got in touch and asked me to go to the Geneva Motor Show, where I met Bob Lutz, who was the head of GM at the time. And they showed me the Ampera, which was an early Vauxhall car in the UK, which is still available, but it's a plug-in hybrid EV. And I went and spent time with Renault in Paris. And then I went and filmed the launch of the Nissan Leaf in 2010. So YouTube was growing, but I never put all my eggs in one basket at the time. I sold the G-Wiz after 8 years. 8 years of driving that car, which was effectively free parking in the West End. Parking's like £6 an hour, no congestion charge. The electricity was, I paid £150 a year for a parking space in a parking bay in Soho, in Chinatown, actually. And it was like £150 24-hour parking, 365 days a year. You plug your G-Wiz in. There were loads of them next to you, and they were all lined up. And you go in and you just plug into a 13-amp socket and charge your car, go to work for the day, because I worked around the corner in Brewer Street at the time, come back, drive the car, go off to meetings. It was brilliant. The kind of early YouTube channel, I was vlogging most of that stuff and covering it off, but and I was charging the vehicle outside the house. So some of the videos you can see here are going to be like the Challenger video that I had on working with like user generated content and video content around cars that were really early adopter cars, and all from this kind of POV perspective of understanding the journey and owning the vehicle and stuff like that. So we had a lot of content come out of it. I filmed the early charges that were going in London. Then I sold the G-Wiz and I bought a Nissan Leaf, and I tried to make that our only car. So the great thing about the G-Wiz was it was brilliant and it was small, but it was definitely a second car. You couldn't have any kind of a life. You just knew what its limitations were, which is that I live, 5 miles outside of the West End of London, and you could get it and use it. Really, I should have cycled more, but it was a heck of a lot easier, and I could zip off and do meetings. You could park 3 in a bay in London at the time. So it was super easy to use this car, and it was free. So it kind of made sense just to own this vehicle. I think it cost like $8,000 all in, brand new, the car at the time. So it wasn't an expensive vehicle. Then I bought the Leaf, and the Leaf was the second gen Leaf in 2014. So I'm still making the odd clip, I'm still doing stuff, I'm still filming the odd car, but I'm not as wholly invested in weekly uploads and time. And my main production business at the time, which is what I do for a job and make a living from, it was really busy and continues to be busy to this day. So I've kind of kept half an eye on this stuff. I've never gone after it, but the Leaf was good. But boy, was it hard work owning that vehicle and just doing like the odd trips. I think it had a 90-mile range, which was severely impacted in winter. So I would drive it for short journeys. We struggled with it. We moved house around the corner from where we were, and both houses didn't have proper off-street parking. So I couldn't charge the vehicle. I was relying on the public charging network, which was very limited at the time. And we were really struggling to go for it. We go out to Hertfordshire, which is a 30-minute drive out of where I am on a clear day, and go for a walk in the countryside. And then you'd spend 4 hours in a drizzle-filled car park on an AC charger, waiting for this thing to charge to get back into town. So it had to go. I owned it for 2 years. It was our only vehicle. And then in 2016, I said, with my wife, who was actually quite persuasive at the time, and understandably so, no more EVs for a while. Let's just get a petrol car and do that. So I went out and I bought the dream car that I've always wanted, a Subaru Forester Turbo. Complete change. Brilliant. Still got it. It's 2006. Got an amazing guy who looks after the car. It's thirsty, yeah, but not massively. We don't use it very much. It gets bumped outside our house all the time, but people bounce off it, and it works. It's just like a really good car. It's solid, it's quick, it does everything you need. But I've kept an eye on EVs. I've always wanted an EV. I went and filmed the Model S as soon as it arrived in the UK. I really wanted to get one of those, and I loved what they were doing at the time, and had coveted what Tesla was all about then. Because it was such an amazing company. Then I went from there up to selling the Leaf, getting the petrol car, and I kept an eye on what was happening on video, continued to do the odd post, experimented with 360-degree video as it came. I was going off and doing the odd show. So I'd go and do what was called the Low Carbon Vehicle Show, who'd always been very good to me, and they'd invited me every year. And I go and do bits. I'd filmed loads and loads of different people that had come and gone in the electric car industry. And boy, I thought my business was tough, but content is content. These guys that are developing and building platforms, like trying to shake up the world with clean transport, it's so hard. And the ones that have made it have been incredible, that they've managed to push through and build these incredible businesses, really, against all the odds. And there's still a huge dissenting audience around electric cars and what they're about, I think. So that was a journey in itself. When I got to 2020 and we got impacted by the pandemic, I started looking at social media again in a bigger way, because it really affects the work that I do and the business that I'm in. And I do a lot for major brands and stuff around the world, and have produced content for them for many years. But I still kept that mantra in my head, is that the only way to really understand this is by doing it. So I started looking at what was happening online and the explosion of TikTok and so on, and started understanding that TikTok's algorithm was changing everything, and that the other social media platforms were following TikTok's lead, and that it wasn't really about being follower based anymore, which is why I'm sitting here talking to you with a small audience at this stage, because I know hopefully it will grow at some point, or people will pick up the content in other distribution opportunities. But everyone started following TikTok's lead, and TikTok became interest based. So that when you're on feed in TikTok, you are beginning to look at content that's served to you, because the algorithm's so good, around your interest based. It's not about followers anymore. So it doesn't matter if you've got 1 follower or 0 followers or subscribers. You can make a piece of content that can blow up, or with organic social reach, as long as it hits the right notes. So I watched this for a while. I experimented with all the other platforms during that period. So we were looking at, you know, what was happening in other areas, and seeing who came through. I remember doing a lot, getting really into that podcasting kind of audio platform that was around, that Twitter followed. I can't remember the name of it now. During 2020 in the pandemic, when we were all stuck at home, and I was on there, like, you know, building an audience on it, and then it dies. So you kind of invest quite a lot of time and energy in these platforms that die. But what's becoming very apparent, having watched what TikTok do and how the other platforms have followed them, is that this interest-based media really matters. So you can build audience very, very quickly off 1 clip. You have to, I started looking at short form again, and short form is a space that I'm kind of used to, and I understand, and I have continued to work with over the years, because I've made commercials in 30 seconds. I've worked with directors that are really, really good at storytelling, understanding narrative, and hooking an audience. And I started looking at how that was affecting my industry. And in September of 2023, I started producing content for TikTok again on EVs. But what I'd noticed, I thought at the time, is I'm coming back to EVs. I sold the Leaf Gen 2, but I really don't understand charging now. Level 1, level 2 didn't make sense really. Type 1, type 2, AC, DC. What was going on with all these kind of charging and infrastructure things that were growing really quickly? And also, you know, since 2020, when it was supposedly the massive electric car explosion was happening, it was like an opportunity to really dig down, try and build some content streams using content pillars, and approaching it in a kind of methodical, strategic way, where I publish every Friday and I distribute over the weekend, once a week on all platforms, playing around with title and hooks and the early stage for what was required there, but working from that. And boy, did it explode. Like, I was getting 1.4 million Reels views on particular videos on Instagram. I was getting 600,000 views on some of the TikToks, and plus 600-700 comments. The interaction and the traction that you gain from the audience is incredible. So I thought that was really interesting, which brings me down to, here we are, 2026, and we're starting our kind of content journey, and your content journey for what matters this year going forwards. And what I've noticed, and you're probably hearing it a lot, is that YouTube is becoming a TV format. TV ads are almost dead. We're busier than we've ever been at the moment in my production company, because we're making so much VOD content, social content. There's so much requirement for content at the moment across all platforms. The budgets are changing very, very quickly. The expectations from the brands are very, very different. They're trying to understand where they need to put all their content, and where they're kind of reacting and not reacting. But this is a massive opportunity, and YouTube has become very Netflix in style. The YouTube kind of database, and the way that episodic clips are going to be presented to you are becoming really, really important, led by YouTube, and long form content where people can just put something on a TV and go and do, you know, a job around the house and listen to this in a kind of video podcasting sense. It makes a lot of sense. So YouTube is becoming a fantastic platform for using the app in TV and understanding where your audience is going to be going forwards. I think that there are going to be lots and lots of new opportunities across building out content strategies for long form on YouTube. It's been used as a dumping ground by brands for too many years. And now the opportunity on YouTube is for brands to build steady streams of regular entertaining content across their YouTube audience, rather than just dumping official video in there. So take away your B-roll, start tidying up your channels and start thinking about how you can build content pillars for YouTube where people are watching the content. They're also, the audience is really engaged in where you want to be, what's going on behind the brand. So behind the scenes, how ideas are formulated, where ideas come from. The audience is really engaged in that kind of stuff and they want a voice in it. So they talk to you about it regularly. And I've found that that's been the case with YouTube, certainly, and other platforms that are doing similar things. There's going to be a series of interviews. I'm going to go live at 11 a.m. on Fridays. It's not going to be every Friday. It'll be some Fridays, but I do plan to go live at 11 a.m. Fridays, and I'm beginning to book in interviews. So my first interview coming up next week is really exciting, actually, because I'm going to be working let me just pull up Theo Reichgelt is coming in, hopefully, to do a meeting next week on Friday at 11, and he will be doing the content interview with me for he's an amazing guy, and he is a he's a fractional CMO in the EV charging space, and he knows a lot about building out brand structure for how EV charging is going to be structured, how you should approach your marketing plan, and he puts a lot of really good value content out on LinkedIn. So I think he will be a really good interview. With what I've done around EV charging and understanding where the audience is and what they're doing, and what Theo's doing around making the making sure that you have a solid structure in place as a marketing plan, and building brand out for EV charging, which, let's face it, is a really boring, unremarkable kind of sector of the industry, which is one of the reasons I make content, because I'm amazed that it has huge audiences, but it can do. And building a marketing plan for these particular brands. People don't really have a big brand affinity with what's going on with EV charging. So I'm really interested to dig in with Theo and understand how he feels we should be approaching work like that. And I'm going to be doing more interviews like that over the course of the year, Fridays at 11 a.m. with people who have valid things to say from a marketing perspective around content, and also the content makers, because you guys as well, who've been producing content for EVs, are remarkable. Those early guys like Bobby Llewellyn and what he's done with Fully Charged is incredible, and Nikki over at Transport Evolved. They've been so solid producing regular show content for many, many years, and it's been really, really good, are amazing. And I think that he's, there's so many people that have fallen by the wayside, and they've just got burnout from creator content. I'm going to make these a live format. I'm going to try and work to my strengths, which is not editing. So I'm not going to be editing. I'm going to be using tools to create short clips, see how they go out on my other distribution channels and understand it. And I'm going to be going for content interviews with content makers, marketing people, and also people who run businesses that are in the EV space, because I want to understand where their challenges are from a marketing perspective and how they go about doing stuff. So keep an eye out for 11 o'clock. It's going to be about a 30-minute slot each week, or every so often, Fridays at 11. I will publicize it before it happens, and we will take it from there. Really looking forward to doing this year and just seeing how it grows, and how YouTube as a platform for lean back activity, which means you're not sitting at your laptop leaning into it, you're leaning back and enjoying it, develops. And I think hopefully it will be a learning opportunity for you from someone who's done a lot of this, talking to people who know a lot about brand and marketing within the EV sector, because the Chinese are coming into the UK. The vehicles are arriving very, very quickly. They have a job to do, a big selling job, and they're going to be all, you know, we're going to have a lot of interesting Chinese vehicles in our market soon, especially with EU legislation and so on. So it will be interesting to see how they develop their kind of brand practices around trying to build audience and brand. And I hope that you're going to get to learn something from it. So thank you. See you on the Odd Friday at 11.